My headset's not working.
Perfect. Said it once, said it a million times. Oh yeah, I can hear you.
There we go. Nothing like a good open color.
Yeah, if we're not off the rails,
then we're never really on the rails. What's happening?
Just loving snow again.
Oh my god, man. It's beginning to be a bit too much, you know, like this whole like Farmer's Almanac, you know.
Take two.
Take two. My turn.
Farmer's Almanac, you're saying?
Yeah, oh yeah, Farmer's Almanac. Yeah, I read it last year, and they're saying that in the new year we're supposed to get a lot of snow, and I was like, whatever. Farmer's Almanac. I don't really trust you. Well, they're tending to be a bit true right now. 39 centimeters in the month of January. A bit nuts. Actually, more than that. That would be closer to 60 with this most recent round.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
It's like enough. I blame everybody who complained about having snow for Christmas.
I keep telling myself that there are approximately 30, 31, 30, 29 days until spring training starts for baseball. So that's what gets me through these dog days of winter.
Just knowing that it's going to end.
Yeah. There's no, like, you know what? Like February is this just in. February is the shortest month ever. Once that's done, then you get into March, and generally it's a bit of a crapshoot. Like you could have some days that are, you know, cold, but you could have some that are pretty nice. So I feel like if you can just get past February, then we'll be okay.
Yeah, it feels like you just described seasons.
Yeah, all four of them, you might say.
Sometimes they're cold, sometimes they're nice.
It's just a crapshoot. It's just a crapshoot. So, what was your shoveling experience like today?
Oh, you know, start at one spot, push it to another spot, lift it up into the massive banks that exist now.
Rinse, repeat. Rinse, repeat.
Next is going to be taking it off the roof and putting that somewhere.
You're really going to go on the roof and take it off?
No, I got a roof rake. I'll do it from the safety of the ground.
But do you need to?
I'm doing it in the front above the garage because it's so high. It's like blocking the windows, and just my concern is melt getting into the window and then getting inside.
You know what? It's funny that you say that because we opened up our windows in the bedroom here.
Yeah.
First time ever in the 3 years close to 3 years we've been in the house. There's a pile of snow that's covering the window, and we're like, "Oh, this is new."
Yeah. Drifting, they're blowing, right?
I tell you. So, week's been good aside from that?
It's trying to be. It's trying to be nice, but also at the same time try to mess this thing. It seems like it's going longer than should be. Like no day today, and kids have tomorrow off for a PD day. So
They take the bus normally for school?
yeah.
Yeah. So what's your take then on the buses being canceled? Like, is it that far from your house to the school?
No, it's not. Um, I don't know what happened, but I feel as though life has forgotten that we are in Canada and we get snow.
100%.
Because I am fairly confident in past years we had like 20, 25 centimeters forecasted and the buses came.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like they say 10 to 15, it's, get the first aid kit ready and stock up on food. And if you have to eat your youngest, then do so to survive because snow is coming.
So we're pretty not strict, but we try not to let the simplest of weather storms prevent the boys from going to school. Like today was an example, but then there was also the 23rd or the 22nd, pardon me.
Seems
There's
like
a few times, every other week, basically we'll say that, like where buses will be canceled, but Jade will trek them to school. They'll get to school. Yep. And for them, it's almost like just, like hey, we've no lessons today. We get to play games or watch a movie or do whatever. So for them, it's like a PD day, but at school, which is yay, perfect for us because we get to work. So, but yeah, like when we were younger, I remember, it'd have to be like minus 40, 40 centimeters of snow before anything would be canceled. And you know what? And if you were 50, if you miss the first bell, then you'd be in trouble. So make sure you get your ass to school.
Yeah, the only times I can think of would be if they lost power, or one time we went because it was so cold, the pipes were frozen and there was no functioning bathrooms.
That's
so
fair.
You can't have the schools open. So
we
got off the bus and then back on the bus and off we go. And any other time buses were canceled, my parents were too busy to even let me know. So I was walking to school not knowing that I was getting there with half my friends.
We were troopers. Like, let's just, pat ourselves on the back here for a minute. We were troopers.
Yeah, we survived the 80s and 90s, and
there should be a shirt that they make for that. We survived the winters of the 80s and 90s.
Well, it's just like I said,
hashtag damn you millennials.
I don't know if it's just the doomsday media coverage, but it just seems like every time there's any sort of weather event, it is blown. Apocalyptic.
Yeah,
it's insane. I do not understand it. And even if they give you like the range of forecasted snow, it's like, oh, we're calling for 10 to 15, could be 20, could be 25, maybe even 30.
Yeah.
So like, what are you doing?
Well, CTV even had the because they've obviously been covering this for like a number of days since the weather warning had been issued by Canada Weather, and they're like, their graphics were like storm team, January 23. It's like, okay, like time out a little bit.
And they don't even have anybody out in the field either, like you would see like at the Weather Network or like how they do in the States where they're standing outside and showing.
Typically stand outside of the studio and then they just go right back in.
Yeah. Into their warm, radiated, heated up studio.
Although there are those times where you see those news, reporters that are on the side of like the 416 when it's like a really bad storm, and it's like, why? You must be really far down the totem pole of seniority for you to be told to drive out in, Timbuktu to go do a newscast for 5 minutes standing on the side of a highway. Like you've not reached the pinnacle of your, journalism career if you're being told to do that.
They don't typically send them down the 401 though.
No, that's true.
I'll talk about the 401 and how bad it was, but they don't send their guys.
They're smarter. Liabilities.
Well, then there's a whole TV show about it.
Have you watched that TV show?
I haven't.
I get anxiety just seeing the commercials.
Yeah, again, that's apocalyptic 401, right?
Yeah.
Which, again, like to be fair, it is bad, and there's always something bad that happens on the 401 any time of year.
Right.
So, kudos for them
making a TV show out of it.
Making a TV show out of it. Kudos for exploitation.
I get an extra $3 on my paycheck. If I hitch up 3 extra cars, it's an extra $60 this shift. And if I lose an arm, then I lose an arm. And it'll all be caught on camera.
That's right. And the stories you'll be able to tell.
Season 2 of whatever the show was.
Yeah, it's 401 something or other.
401 Rescue. That's what it is.
Oh yes, that's what it is.
401 Rescue. Yeah, you see the commercial, and the guy's like, "I've been hit. I've been hit." I'm like, "Oh my god! Like, what's he been hit with?" Like I did.
It was a bee.
That's right. Yeah. It was a gust of wind that Miata hit him with as he was driving by going 40. But then they extenuate it for the show. So
The Mazda Miata. I can't believe that was such a popular little sports car. Like, it's really small, but
yeah,
people liked it. I remember in high school, a buddy of mine's like, "That's the car I'm gonna own." Like, really?
okay, fair enough. But then I was going to say the same thing. But then if you think about it, like when we were young and in high school, let's be honest, we would have taken any car. And so any car that was kind of slick, somewhat, relatively modestly priced, looked a bit sporty, we'd be like, oh yeah, that's the one. So I don't blame your buddy, because I probably would have been the same way.
I'm wondering too, because I remember it was one of the sports cars. I was in like one of those Gran Turismo games. I wonder if that played a factor into it. PlayStation. I think it came out on PlayStation 2, Gran Turismo 3. So like that was more realistic looking cars, versus the PlayStation 2 predecessor.
So which one was Vice City? Was Vice City 4?
Oh, not Grand Theft Auto, Gran Turismo.
Oh, Gran Turismo.
Right. Racing game.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the cars.
I remember when it first came out, the Prowler, I was like, oh, this is the coolest car I've ever seen in my entire life. And then upon further review, 10 years later, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, no, absolutely not. But again, Pinto. I would have taken anything at that point. So
it's true. My mom had a shitbox. What was it? A Plymouth Horizon. And let's see if we'll Google this so we can look at the sheer audacity of this car to exist.
Now, while you're pulling it up, what color was it?
Silver.
Okay.
So I gotta find me one that's.
And was this your shaggin' wagon when you were going through high school? Was this your whip?
No, this was the. Please God, don't let anybody see me in this vehicle, because it was, again, like shitbox to. But then, as you said, when it came to time to get a car, like I would have driven that, because it very much reminded me of the Mirthmobile in Waynesboro.
That's right. Okay, yeah. With the licorice dispenser.
Yeah. So this is what it was.
Yes. Yeah. I remember those.
So that was the shitbox that I was driven around in.
Hey,
and this is like 2002, and it's, as you clearly see, it's an 84.
Was your mom's year in 84? Was it in 84?
I was definitely old. It was one of those, we had a car, it died, and this was like available.
So we had a Toyota Tercel, and I want to say it was like a 91 or a 90 or something like that, and it was very compact. It was very small. It was very slick looking. Like, it wasn't the greatest, like it wasn't like a top-notch vehicle, but it did its thing. And my younger brother, when he got his license, it was given to him, and he thought it was the best thing since sliced bread.
Little hand-me-downs.
That's it. It's the one time that hand-me-downs work for kids. Like, they don't like it when it's clothes or when it's shoes or baseball gloves.
If they don't know any of that, then they're fine.
Fair enough. But when it comes to cars, they're like,
the rise of thrift stores changed all that. Because then you're coming in with bags of clothes like it's from a store. You think it's new, but no, it's Valley Village.
It was someone else's.
But they don't need to know that.
They don't.
All right, let's move into some stuff. Yeah. So as you let me know, Shazam dropped.
Did you have? Is this your first time seeing it, or have you seen it already?
This will be the first time. Let's make sure that we get some.
Okay.
I saw it earlier. I saw that it came out, but I didn't. I didn't watch it.
lightning bolt on it. Aquaman is literally human. So Batman, that's so cool. And I'm just me.
Is this the newest one?
As far as I know.
It doesn't matter. Anyway, the wizard gave me superpowers.
I have some concerns with the second one.
To fight crime?
Okay.
Mainly, how do they afford a house that big in Philadelphia?
You understand I'm a pediatrician, right? Come on!
The fate of your world depends on it. The daughters of Atlas are coming for you.
Children are a revolt of gods. Business, very smart.
Look, I might not have as much experience as you because I'm not super old like you. But I've seen all the Fast and Furious movies, lady. It's all about
He is well suited for Shazam, though.
the world will not survive this.
I don't know how we fight powers like this.
You think I know how to fix this, dude, but I really don't.
Everyone can be worthy. Let's give it a chance. Now go fight for your family. Go fight for the world.
I just threw a truck at a dragon. I love my life.
So, what are your thoughts?
I haven't seen the first one, so
You haven't
thoughts
seen the
would be-
first one. That's right.
no, that doesn't didn't
think-
interest me.
I think you need to see it, and it's not because like if you're not a Shazam fan or what have you. I think that's fine. I think the first one is just a very wholesome, very funny, very very comedic movie, and I think you would enjoy it. I think you would. It doesn't have all the tropes of like the Snyderverse and like a dark and realism. It kind of is a bit of a refresher from what we've typically seen from DC movies. My concern with the second one is the same concern that I would have for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Iron Man 2, where they, Ragnarok or Love and Thunder, pardon me, where they recognize that there was a success that they had with the movie, and then they're just like, you know what, let's just pump it full of PEDs and like run it to the theater,
So take what works and then just dial it up.
Right, 100%. And I hope it's not the case. So the way that Shazam was written in the comics by Jeff Johns was very much like what we see in the movies here, where there is like the comedic braid. It's very fluid. There's no sense of realism, but it's very fantastical, I guess you could say. So to a certain point, I think if the movies can do that, then it's okay. But then I feel like there is that line that they might cross where if they get a bit too much, and I wish you'd seen the first movie, because there's a perfect example in the first movie where, I mean, it's not spoiling the story, but like one of the first times that he turns into Shazam, they go to a corner store and he walks out with beer and he's like, oh my God, this is the first time I bought beer. And it's a whole comedic scene. And like, him and Freddie are laughing and whatnot. And I just hope that they don't take that type of a joke that's very simple and just fleeting and make it the whole movie, So we'll see. I mean, it's earned enough for me to not get too down on it before the movies come out, because the first one was really good. But we'll see what it brings in March.
Do you think by showing and referencing, Momoa's Aquaman and Affleck's Batman, that you're kind of saying, "Oh, okay, this is going to be the last one of these," because
Well, they did that in the they referenced Superman and Batman in the first one.
no, I get that, but like we know that James Gunn's going to be retooling and rebooting
Yeah.
everything. So it's
Yeah.
by referencing these guys that we know are not going to be involved going forward that you're saying, "Hey, this is the last one because this is all going to be different."
Yeah, quite possibly, for sure. I think too, like, we talked about it a few episodes ago about like the possibility that they could make from the Flash movie, and
I did notice they didn't show his face.
they didn't show whose.
They should have mentioned the Flash. They should have Flash running, but they didn't show the
That's
actor.
right. Yeah, and it, the Crisis on Infinite Earths or Crisis on Infinite Crisis. I can't remember. There's been so many. I can't remember. But eventually what they did, and I think it was actually everyone, if I'm being honest, is they took heroes from every one of the Earths, and then when they had the one Earth, they had heroes from different Earths. So I think maybe what they might do, is take Shazam and his little pocket universe with Black Adam, potentially, and bring him into James Gunn with the Gunverse, I guess. Do we want to call it that? Are we trademarking it, the Gunverse?
I'm sure people are going to be calling it that. I think they'll probably just call it DCU.
The Gunnerverse, dude.
Gunner.
The Gunnerverse. Although there really hasn't been any direct lineage or like reference between Black Adam and Shazam. Like I don't recall seeing in the Black Adam movie that there was any direct reference to Shazam other than the fact that Henry Cavill showed up at the end.
I haven't watched Black Adam either.
Oh my Cory.
I just feel, to me, that's like Venom. Like, don't those two go hand in hand, Shazam and Black Adam?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're doing a Black Adam movie without Shazam? Like, what the hell?
I think the original intent though was to
have him battle Superman,
build up that universe, right? So you had your movie to introduce Shazam, fantastic. You have your movie to introduce Black Adam, and they collide in the third one, and then maybe a fourth one. And Shazam isn't an evil villain; he's an anti-hero. He's a Punisher. He can be a bad guy when you want him to be a bad guy, but he can be a hero when you need him to be the hero.
Well, my introduction to Shazam and Black Adam was Black Adam is the villain to Shazam.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, he started off.
But everyone's got to be an anti-hero now.
Look at that, like right here, the second appearance of Black Adam. Oh, and you see my monitor.
I can't.
But yeah, he did start off as a villain, but then they changed him to be a anti-hero to whatever suited. Like there was a recent run of Justice League where he was a part of the Justice League, so he's a good guy with them. It's kind of like Lex Luthor. It's kind of like all of them. Like fuck, they just
No, but like to me, the best villains are the ones that stay bad.
Stay villains. Like Magneto is another one. He was the X-Men's villain.
Yeah.
And now he's like a quasi good guy.
Yeah,
But you need those villains that are just like, no, I'm pot committed. I'm gonna be bad to the bone for the rest of my days. Like I'm trying to think, who would that be? That would be Professor Zoom. Who else? I'm looking at all my superheroes here. Kingpin is another one.
Yeah, because even when he does good, he's still doing bad and behind the scenes.
Dr. Doom. That's a great example.
Yeah. I think Joker is not doing anything good.
Joker, yeah, he's menacing. Galactus. Yeah, there's a whole bunch. So
Is Black Adam so he became popular enough that they said, hey, we can't have this guy be bad forever. I assume that's what Venom is.
Yeah, he never really was popular. I think he only became popular because of The Rock, and The Rock had been trying to make this movie for I want to say years, 10 or 15 years. Yeah. And then obviously, if the comic book companies, the publishing companies of the arms of DC and Marvel are smart, which they tend to be when it comes to the movies, is we're just going to replicate what's happening in the movies. The movies are making billions of dollars, and here we are selling 100,000 copies of a comic. We're going to do what the movies do to try and hope to uptick the the sale of those comics. So they're like, oh yeah, no, Black Adam will be a good guy. Sure, why not?
Terrible, just terrible.
Terrible.
All right, I saw this on social, but Kevin Feige does not think people will get bored of superhero films. He says there's 80
Has
years
he-
of the most interesting, emotional, groundbreaking stories that have been told in Marvel Comics, and it is our great privilege to be able to take what we have and adapt them. So, according to the guy who makes superhero movies, no one's going to tire of superhero movies.
There's
I
80
don't
years
know.
of the most interesting, emotional, groundbreaking stories that have been told in Marvel
I don't know,
Comics.
man. Phase 4 kind of made me not.
Yeah. Right away. Hey, Feige, have you seen Phase 4?
He probably hasn't.
No, probably not. Like there's 80 years of interesting stories.
But not everything's like adaptable.
No,
And worth adapting.
100%. And they are in such small formats where, like, you know, you have stories that are like, you know, 10, 20 pages, 22 pages, not multi-issue arcs and whatnot, where they're like one shot. Like back in the day, comics were just one shot issues. Like there was no cohesive storyline. So yeah, you could pull all this stuff, but then it's very convoluted. And I think it's almost egregious for him to say a comment. When was this comment made?
This is past week.
Yeah, like it's a bit like, I don't know how to take that. If I take that as like a slap in the face, as a, you know what, you're still going to come to the movies, so who cares, you know? And this is my excuse and whatnot because of what Phase 4 was.
Mm-hmm.
And if you truly appreciated the 80 years of stories and all of the hard work of the artists and comic book writers that you're not paying for the intellectual property and making billions of, like, hundreds of millions of dollars off of it, you're not paying them a pittance of it.
Yep.
And you say we have all of this, you know, history that we can draw off of, then show the history a bit more respect and map out a plan and just be a bit more forthright with it. And maybe that's a bit of the angst from Phase 4 that's coming out right now, but I find that
weird,
comment
like,
to be like a bit just egregious.
Considering how mainstream the movies are, how secretive they are, whereas it's a niche group of people that are really into the comics, but they lay that out well in advance and let people know what's coming.
But you know what? It's that niche group of people that are into the comics that flood the internet with the clickbaits and with the theories and with the, like, they're the ones that start that storm of, you know, oh, like, here's 72 Easter eggs from the most recent Ant-Man Quantumania trailer.
I know, but they tell them ahead of time, like, what the big arcs are coming in the comics, but they won't tell us what's happening in the movies. To your point, like, he's not laying out what's coming. It's just like, yeah, we're gonna do these movies, and we'll give you a title of a movie, and you can try to guess what's gonna happen in it.
And you know, the sad thing too, though, is I'm noticing that with the comic books, they are starting to format the comic book story arcs is almost as if they are preparing it for the MCU. So we are writing this Avengers story arc, hoping that in 10 years it will be adapted to the MCU. And we picked up, and same thing with DC, and same thing with these independent, like, Image comics that are coming out, these small stories. They're writing it almost as if, here's the screenplay, can you buy it from us and take it and adapt it? And it's like, oh my god, like, and I get it, like part of me, if I put my realist hat on for a minute, I say, you know what, comic books, are they gonna be around in 100 years? I don't know. 50 years? I don't know. Will it ever get to the amount of people that are reading it like it was 40 years ago or 50 years ago? Probably not. So I'm a bit of a purist with that, but it's just tough to see that it's a medium that's dying a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. And this is the thing too, is like, I you know, when we were kids, I'm sure you're probably the same thing too. All I ever wanted when I was a kid was to see the heroes that I read in the pages be on the screen. And now I'm seeing them on the screen, and I'm like, that's not really the way it should be. And it's like, I gotta check myself a little bit. You know, maybe
Yeah.
maybe the kids that are going to the movies, just let them have that. Let them be that. Let them be. Let that be their experience for what superheroes should be. And you know,
Yeah, it's tough because like you'll go in there and like you probably explain to your kids like, oh, like this is Ultron. Ultron was created by Hank Pym, and then you go to the movies like, well, that didn't happen.
oh, it's Tony Stark.
Yeah,
Like, Daddy, you're an idiot. It's Tony Stark. You saw it in the movies. Like, okay, time out. Time out. Yeah. So I mean,
Jarvis's vision. What?
yeah, Jarvis. I mean, no, Jarvis was a butler. He waited on the hands of the Avengers, head and toe. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean,
Spider-Man has organic web shooters.
but how much of that comment is almost like a reaction to probably the feedback that he's heard because it's been online and it's been through every other medium. Like Phase 4 was a shit show. Like it was just a shit show. It was and we've said this before, but you'd spent 21 or 23 movies through 3 phases building up this huge story arc. So you've conditioned the people that are making you billions of dollars laying out this type of storytelling where they expect, okay, that Sega's done. Okay, boom, let's move into the next one.
Right.
Where you spend like 4 or 5 like MCU movies, but then the same amount for the TV shows for nothing. Like,
yeah, I feel it's almost as if like Shang-Chi was a red herring because that's the only one that introduced a new character and started to push the story.
Ask the question.
And then we had just like single focused stories with like nothing teasers and nothing's moving.
That's ahead. A good point. Because Shang-Chi, like it was like, what's that blip at the end of it? Like when Wong was saying, what's that? And like right away, you're like, okay, is it Galactus? Is it, is it Kang? Is it who could it be? And then whoop, nothing.
Yep, nothing.
Just kind of like Homer Simpson in the bushes.
Right back into the bushes.
So I just I don't know why he would say something like that, and I hope that this next phase 5 is almost like a redemption, and it almost would have, in my opinion, served them better to say, and I think I said this before, like just treat phase 4 as almost like a reset. We're gonna take a pause. We're gonna introduce some new characters, but we're gonna very quietly lay the foundation for the next 2 phases, 5 and 6, and then do it that way. But instead of not saying anything and then us just assuming that they can't even, we're not assuming anything. Like we are basically doing what we've been conditioned to do for those 20 some odd movies, where there's a scene or 2 at the end of the movie where we're like, okay, this is advancing the story, and it's not advancing the story. And then we get all pissed off about it, and they're hum about it. They're not saying anything. And then phase 5 starts. So anyway, get all worked up. I'm done with superheroes. No, I'm not.
Soon.
I'm not.
He just said you won't be. No one's gonna get tired of it.
Never.
Okay.
So
campers.
What's that?
I said, okay, campers, rise and shine. You want to talk about Groundhog Day?
I did. I really did.
Don't forget your booties because it's cold out there today.
So this is perfect timing. They've been playing it on AMC quite a bit. And it's a great movie.
They play 4 movies. Groundhog Day, The Great Outdoors, Home Alone when it was around Christmas time.
Okay.
And they usually marathon The Godfather a lot.
Okay. So I would say Home Alone and Planes, Trains, Automobiles, you got to exclude them because they're like Thanksgiving until the New Year. Like they're on just rotation.
There was a while they were playing Addams Family and Addams Family Values a lot too.
That's true. I'd say also Uncle Buck is on heavy rotation on that channel. But they do play some classics, which is fine. But Groundhog Day, they're very thematic, I guess. AMC, like they recognize the holidays that are coming, and they just like inundate you with movies.
Yes.
The same movie, one movie for 2 weeks straight. Like
that's right.
It's an all weekend marathon of Groundhog Day.
Oh, and I think the last couple weeks they've been showing all 5 Rockies.
Yeah, that's true. It makes you wonder too, though, like if they're doing it almost on purpose, where like they're showing you for like 2 days straight, Groundhog Day, for all time slots for the 48 hours, like as a bit of a tongue in cheek. Anyway,
Like we're stuck in a time loop.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to watch Groundhog Day, seen it many times before. I took some notes because I started thinking about it, and I should preface this by saying, like any movie, if you spend enough time thinking about something, you can probably punch enough holes into it that it'll end up looking like Swiss cheese. Fair enough.
Mhm.
The movie was, I think they had spent $14 million making it. It grossed about 71 million. So in 1993, 94, whenever it came out, in that era, like that time, I would
Yeah,
say
it's
that's
profitable.
that's profitable. It's a success, you know, right off the heels of Ghostbusters and whatnot. And so we've all heard the sayings like, you know, don't give up, ignore the rules, you know, make the most of every day like it's your last.
Yep.
And I'm starting to think to myself, and I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, oh my God, how long was he in this loop for? Because they never really explicitly say it, you know,
No,
and you
I
start
think
to.
Bill Murray hypothesized saying that he figures it was like thousands of years.
No, I actually have an answer for it.
Okay.
I actually have an answer for it. But again, if you start to like you know,
Nitpick it.
poke holes and whatnot,
Yeah.
but let's just rhyme off a few of the things that he had done. When keeping in mind, as you're watching the movie, you're just assuming this is a week in the life of, you know,
Mhm.
a week in the life of. So he decides to get into a police chase.
Yep.
He fools a hottie whose name is Nancy. Oh, I was in your high school class, you know, into sleeping with him. He empowers gluttons everywhere to just eat whatever they want,
Yeah.
you know, probably being a stemming reason why there is a epidemic in the United States for calorie intakes, we'll say. He spends an exorbitant amount of time chasing down his producer, Rita, again, empowering, you know, not only gluttons, but stalkers everywhere. Don't give up. He plans a robbery. He learns to play the piano. He learns to ice sculpt. He knows the personal details of everyone in town.
Everybody.
He
Yep.
memorizes the actions of everyone in town. So, i.e., he memorized the actions of the homeless guy that he saved. He memorized the action of Buster, who he saved from choking, who's played
Yep.
by his brother, Brian. He's in a bunch of movies with him. Brian
Doyle.
Thank you. He learns poetry and French. He helps Debbie get through her engagement with Fred, who is played by Michael Shannon. So again,
First
callback.
movie.
We're touching on Michael Shannon quite a bit these
That's
last few episodes. He becomes a doctor of chiropractic work and helps Felix's back get better. He then goes on stage to a bachelor auction and drives the bid up to $339.88. And if you quantify that into today's time value of money, that's actually worth $698.10 in today's dollars. So all of these things he had learned.
Right.
And then he
In
started
a week.
poking a hole. And in a week, you know, it's like, oh, you know, it's in a week. You know, he's probably been in the same bed and breakfast, you know, for a week, whatnot. So I was looking online because I was trying to figure out, you know, like if there was anything
Plus,
that was kind of
That also doesn't include the amount of times he killed himself.
right, like
'Cause
going
that'd
on
be
to
in
the
addition too, right?
right. So going on to the train tracks, like dropping the
Yeah.
toaster in the tub, like all
Stealing
these other times.
the groundhog and going off the cliff.
So there was a website that said there were 38 days that were actually shown in the movie. So I don't know why, and maybe it was just all of the cutscenes. Maybe like all the
Probably.
cutscenes, if you add them, it's 38 days. Okay, fine, I'll buy that. As well as the 414 days that were mentioned in the film. So again, I don't know how 414 totals up. It could be just references and
Okay, yeah.
the next days and whatnot. So 38 days, 414 days, and then a whopping 11,931 days that Phil spent learning these new talents, all the ones that I just listed. So if you subscribe to the belief that it takes you 10,000 hours to become a master at something,
Right.
then it totals 12,395 days or 34 years.
Yeah.
So the big question is like, would this drive you insane?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
when
As
he
they said,
meets
because Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting
100%,
different results. So
yes,
he, for 34 years, he did the same thing,
34 years.
expecting a different result.
But you know what? He kept his complexion. Like he looks great for 34 years later. What
Trooper.
was it? The Bill Nevin, the guy that he punches. What's his name?
It's Ned Ryerson.
Thank you, Ned Ryerson. Pretends to like 34 years of punching him or like getting the courage up to punch him, and so it's again, it's not to bitch on the movie. It's not to say like, it's not to. I love the movie, and I've ever since it came out, I've always enjoyed watching it. But it was just this one time last week, and starting to think like, oh my god, like
You left yourself watching the movie and became an analytical.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
how much time is actually spent doing this? Because it was that one scene where he was at that one ball and he got up and he was playing piano and like, oh my god, Phil Connors, he's so good. And then Rita goes up and notices him, and this is after repeated amounts of times of him turning him down. And then the young couple Felix and all these people start coming up. Oh yeah, he's a great guy. You should probably hang out with him. And starts to thinking like, well, like how much time has been spent actually manipulating the whole town of was it Pensacola?
Pensacola.
What is it?
Yeah, I can't even say it now either. Punxsutawney.
Punxsutawney. So,
Punxsutawney Phil.
Anyway, I figured with Groundhog Day coming up next week, who knows, man? Maybe we're in a Groundhog Day with all this snow and cold weather.
It's happening weekly. Like, who knows? Like, the only difference between this week and last week is that it happened on a Wednesday into a Thursday instead of Thursday to Friday.
You got to keep things fresh, Corey. Got to keep things fresh.
You can't. It's not a time loop. That's also the argument too. Is it a time loop movie or is it time travel? Because he's constantly traveling back in time to the same day.
I think it's a time loop.
That's the other debate.
Like, what is it? Do you think it's the Airbnb that's like the reason why he's caught in that loop? Or I mean, obviously they say that it's his character and he needs to change his ways, just like Scrooge, which he played brilliantly in 1989. Or is it the Airbnb?
See, if that movie was made today, we'd have to have a scene or two with just exposition explaining what's happening because people are so dumb they need to have it spoon-fed for
100%. Well, they would probably just create a TikTok video as part of their marketing campaign to say like, this is what's going on. Hey guys, so we're just here to explain what.
Terrible.
I'm telling you.
Kids should be doing what our commercial break is.
When was last
Soccer bopper. You can sock all day and bop all night. Soccer bopper. More fun than a pillow fight. Blow 'em up, put your hand inside, get ready to have the time of your life. Soccer bopper. Sock 'em once and bop 'em twice. Soccer bopper.
Soccer Boppers. More fun than the pillow fight by Big Time Toys.
Soccer bopper.
We're just letting kids wail on each other.
So, how many injuries do you think happened from that product?
What?
I vaguely remember that those things.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I don't
them.
think I would ever have.
You inflate them and then you wail on a child. And it's all in good fun.
It kind of reminds me of the old SNL with Dan Aykroyd, where it's like Bag of Nails, where the guy was bringing on all of these, dangerous, like it's a bag of nails, a bag of glass, a bag of glass, Irwin something or other.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's whatever.
He often played those like shoddy salesmen.
And he was like the Italian guy with the toothpick. Like, it's fine. We have a disclaimer.
Yeah, kids
Soccer boppers.
Right.
Yeah. No, parents today would never allow that product to see the light of day, for sure.
No.
Back in the 80s, though, in the
Have at it.
early 90s. It was like, well, yeah, I've bought it for them already, and their birthday's next year. We've already scheduled time for the bopper session. So, yeah.
It
Hey,
was a simpler time.
it really was like where if like if you broke your bone, it was almost like a
Walk it off.
walk it off. It was like a rite of passage. Like, oh, you broke your bone outside playing out front. Like, yeah, good for you. Let's go and get you stitched up.
Yeah, you'd fall down, you'd cry, you go, you'd get like dusted off, and you get turned around right back outside.
It's true. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had I remember the Buster whatever, but I don't remember playing with them. But I do remember them. But no, I don't remember doing that with my brother.
No, you just use accurate pillows, as I said, pillow fighting, or just finding other ways of wailing on your sibling.
Oh yeah, we were very creative back in the day.
You had to be. You didn't
Right.
have iPads and stoof.
You know what's funny though is like back in the day, because Reagan had like deregulated everything, and so with that came a tremendous influx of like all these cartoons and like toys and like or cartoons that were created specifically for a toy line. And I feel at times that we lived in an era of like the golden era of toys growing up as boys, where it was like everything under the sun. Like we were just inundated with options of toys like Spectars and G.I. Joe and Superpowers and Mask and Transformers, and the list goes on and on and on.
Yep.
Whereas like now that wouldn't happen because there'd be all these regulations in place. And I feel that we were very fortunate in that sense. But then also all of the toys, like the ones that you just showed on the commercial there, where they would never have been made now. Like we would never have seen them in a Walmart today or anything like that, where you could buy them. It'd be like, no, that would be like a black market thing that you would get like on Craigslist in Ottawa.
Yeah, like it's funny how again that wouldn't fly, but if you looked at board games, how many games involve shit, and I mean literal shit.
The thing
Like, there's
is,
a lot
though,
of toilet games now,
for sure.
which back then you wouldn't even think of.
The thing about board games, and I see what you're saying, but the thing about board games is that when it comes to a board game, you have it in a box and there's a lot of words, and sure there are pictures. The pictures could draw in the kids,
Yeah.
for sure. But for the most part, it's words that adults have to read or to at least get the hook of what it's about. Whereas with toys, it's just you could have a toy in a plastic box where it's like, oh, here's a piece of shit hanging on a rack, and I want that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you box it up in a box and you write about it, then the kids are not so much inclined to ask for it because the parents are the ones that have to read it. So those games are more designed for the parents, or are you talking about ones that are actually designed for kids?
Well, the board games. So I'm gonna say they're for children. Let me pull up one for you. This is at the good old Walmart. It is oh god. I'm embarrassed I even Googled this.
They might come after you, Corey.
Well, if I give credit where credit's due, I think we might be okay. Damn copyrights. Okay. It's my friend and yours. This is I'm sure bound to be played with at your house. Toilet trouble. Which flush will cause the gush?
All right. Okay. Well, see, that's a bit much.
And that's like the more tame one that I found.
This is a game that caters to those free range parents that decide that, you know what, the kids are the ones that rule the house and they can do whatever they want. So normally under circumstances in that household, they would go to the toilet and stick their head in it. Whereas parents like you and I that would be like, oh, there are boundaries and things that you can't do, they wouldn't. So that game is built for parents of free range, parents of kids that let them run the household.
I'll tell you, I never ran the household when I was a kid.
No. We get smacked up.
And we're up a notch. Flush and
Yes.
Frenzy, Overflow. 3 times the poop for 3 times the fun.
Oh my god.
That's how I'm gonna
This
market
is
the
not
show.
this is not a real game.
Swear to all that is you can buy this at Canadian Tire
What?
for the low price of $24.99.
$24.99.
And it's out of stock, so it's flying off the shelves. That's
Wow.
Flush It. Maybe we'll sponsor the podcast. We're giving free.
We
promotion.
should reach out to them for sure. And look at the kids in the picture on the bottom left. They're just having the time of their life. Like,
Shit's just popping. And the one's got like corn pieces in it.
this is the most exciting excrement time I've had in my entire life.
Push the plunger, grab the poop, win the game. Okay.
Oh my god. I almost want to buy this for the kids as a joke now.
Part of us died a little today.
Or is there buy that just as a part of like, I'm gonna collect it and sell it like 40 years from now, because we are becoming such a woke society that in 40 years it'll be like that will not be spoken about. How dare you say poop?
Pretend that never happened.
Pretend that never happened. How dare
We'd
you
get,
say
like,
poop?
It seemed that there would be like a Secret Santa type gift.
100%. Don't you tell them it was from me. Don't tell them it was from me. Yeah.
This time. All right, so we go into the next topic. I saw this the other day.
Okay, I saw this today.
Yeah, so Spielberg was, I guess, asked about movies and stuff, and then I guess it turned to The Dark Knight, and he mentioned that if The Dark Knight was released today, it would have been nominated for Best Picture. I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree that it wouldn't be nominated now. It should have been nominated then, because I think the movie now wouldn't play as well as it did back in 2008.
I think that, to your point, it would not be nominated now, because any movie that would be nominated now was juicing it from The Dark Knight back in 2008. The Dark Knight back in 2008 was a game changer in the genre, and it should have been nominated. It was on the edge of your seat. What's happening next? I don't understand what's going on. Can he be this bad? Can he be this cynical? What's Batman going to do? Like, the whole movie, you're just on the edge of your seat wondering what the fuck is going to happen next. So it definitely should have been nominated back in 2008. And you're right, it shouldn't have been nominated, or it wouldn't be nominated now, because every movie that's nominated, 15 years later, has the advantage of CGI, has the advantage of graphics, has the advantage of cinematography advancements that it didn't have back then. And I feel, even though, like,
which is hilarious, because Nolan doesn't like using CGI, right? So he could have used more of it. He kind of just used it to mask Chicago.
Yeah.
But everything was practical.
You know, like, I listened to a podcast earlier this week. It's funny that you brought that up, because the podcast I listened to this week was talking about Steven Spielberg and how every movie that he makes is covering one of two things. It's covering a broken marriage, or it's covering the desecration of Jews. And obviously you cannot run out of content for that. Like, you can speak to that and write movies about the things that have happened to Jewish people.
I thought you were going to say broken families, because I think that's there's a never-ending cycle of broken families.
For sure. But he, like, if you think about every movie that he's made, it's touched on one of those two things, you know.
Yeah, he does have a thing about having.
He has two tropes.
Definitely father figures that are troubled or lacking.
Yeah.
Like War of the Worlds, when Tom Cruise's
character. Jurassic Park.
Like Alan Grant has like no interest in children.
Yeah.
He learns basically to become a father.
Well, and they
E.T., right? There's no dad.
There's no dad. Like, there's like every single one, if you start to break it down, which is, I think, the reason why they were talking about it on this episode that I listened to, is because they're joking and saying that he got nominated for the Fabelmans for telling the actual story of his family.
Yeah.
He got nominated for the actual story of his family, but he spent the last 20 years of his career, 40 years of his career.
Influenced by the family.
Yeah. but yeah, like I find, yeah, Dark Knight was, to me, a complete game changer. It
Yeah.
was something that we weren't even, and some might say like, oh, you know, it's a bit amped up because of the circumstances that happened with Heath Ledger and, like, you know, his passing, and because of the how much he invested himself in that role. He died as a result of it. Like, you know, that is
Yeah.
propping up the movie because of all that. Like, no, like it was a movie that was so incredibly well written and filmed and kept us on the edge of our seats. And even if you watch it today, and I'd say it's probably been about 5 years since I've seen that movie, but I guarantee if I watch that movie again, like even just the score from Hans
Zimmer.
Like
Yeah.
it sucks you in. Like it's a Oscar worthy movie, and it makes you wonder. Like, I'm curious. I don't have it up now, but I'm curious to know what the movies in 2008 were that were nominated for best movie, because it should have been it should have been nominated for sure.
Well, we will talk about
Okay, there
the
you
new
go.
ones, but let's look up any best pictures before we dive into the coming year, because I have some thoughts. Well, the one that won that year was No Country for Old Men
Okay, never saw it.
in 2008.
Did you see it?
Although that would have been the year before, so 2009 is what we're looking for. I have not seen that one. 2009 was Slumdog Millionaire.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, as we know, those guys are doing gangbusters now. What else was nominated for Best Picture that year? We know who won, but let's see the nominees. Slumdog Millionaire, Curious Case of Benjamin Button,
Okay.
Frost Nixon, Milk, and The Reader.
The Reader. See, never heard of that.
Yeah, I've seen two of those. I've seen Slumdog and I've seen Benjamin Button.
I've never seen Benjamin Button. Is it good?
Yeah, it's a little it's long, so it is slow in places, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, some good competition, I guess, that year, but
Who directed that?
I don't think, though.
Oh, yeah,
I don't,
Fincher. Fincher directed it.
I don't think movies, like we were not in 2008. We were not yet at the point where, and we may still not be at that point where comic book adapted movies have the respect of other movies in terms of Best Picture nominations. I don't know.
Well, if you
Definitely not
just,
in 2008, but
even in 2023, there's the respect still isn't there from other filmmakers, right?
yeah,
Scorsese makes his comments, and other folks are making the comments about them.
yeah. I mean, I can't blame him. Phase 4 was shit again. So, yeah. Anyway, Phase 5, fingers crossed.
So I won't go through all the nominations, but I want to talk about.
How many of them I've seen? None.
I just want to talk about the Best Picture because, again, after The Dark Knight did not get nominated, they changed the rules where you can have up to 10, minimum 5, and then max up to 10. So we have so Best Picture this year nominated was All Quiet on the Western Front, it's a remake there. Of Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I want to see that movie.
The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, Woman Talking, The Banshees of Inisherin, and Avatar: The Way of the Water. Now,
Okay.
here's where I am going to shit on Avatar.
Can I just say, I feel as though we haven't, like, just for the listeners and the viewers, we have not spoken about this before, but I feel as though I'm going to be on the same page with you.
Avatar got 3 nominations, 2 of which are visuals. No acting, no writing, no directing. I don't think if you cannot get a nomination in any category that involves the script, the writing, or the acting, it should not be up for Best Picture.
100%. 100%.
This nomination 100% is just because it's Jim Cameron and it's the biggest movie right now. We need to get people to watch the show.
And
there's no other reason.
So, and it's the same thing. If you look back to 2008, the pictures that this is a systemic issue for as long as you can think about the Oscars. If you go back to 2008, like Benjamin Button, maybe it was a good movie, but there was also it was an achievement in filmography on how they filmed that movie.
Yes.
And you can go through each and every one of the years since then. There's
is that kind of like they used the technology that what they would have used for Captain America in that one
for the de-aging.
Yeah, and then because they had when he was a kid, he's like an old man, but it's Brad Pitt's face on a little kid's body, right?
And you know what? Like, and in fairness, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't speak to the story itself. But my point being is that there are movies out there that are getting the nods and the oh, let's take a look at this because of the graphics of it, and not so much the story and the actual content of it. So
it's like you create this backlash, or you create this seemingly we need to get ahead of something by nominating something, then creating more issues.
The whole fucking Oscars, it's a bit of a sham. It's a bit of a sham.
It's become less relevant as years have gone on. Like this used to be like Super Bowl.
It's a bit of a stroking.
But
like
I was thinking, I was thinking like years ago we would like the big movies were getting nominated. So I don't know why people thought it was only art house. Like when Shakespeare in Love won, it beat Saving Private Ryan. When Forrest Gump won, it beat Goodfellas. I don't know, Goodfellas was Goodfellas. It would beat Pulp Fiction. Like, we had big movies.
What about Chocolat? Like it's Chocolat beat. Well, it had won a lot that year, so I'm sure it beat a couple of good movies. But yeah, like there's.
Or the Driving Miss Daisies when Goodfellas came out. I think that makes sense.
That sounds a bit more accurate. Yeah. I feel like it's just a.
Then it became all art house.
I feel like the Oscars is a bit of a self-pandering opportunity for Hollywood up and ups and the echelons to be like, this is what we made, and they always like. And I think to further prove this point is that a number of the nominations that come out each and every year for the best pictures are movies that tend to be released in the theaters like towards the middle end of July. Yet the Oscars are in February, and it's like, okay, well, if it's such a big box office smash and like made an impact and this, that, and the other, then you should be talking about movies that came out in May, June of the year that you're doing the competition for, which is why I would say like the best picture of the year should be Maverick. I mean, it held the number one position for X amount of weeks. It was made, an ungodly amount of money. So,
and it was reviewed well.
And it was reviewed well. Like, but it was,
I like Maverick, but I don't think it should have been nominated for Best Picture.
Fair, okay, sure. And I haven't seen it yet, so
like for me, the movie is everything that we needed for this time.
Okay.
So like it was like just pure escapism. Everything like logic be damned, like Groundhog Day. Behind it, but like coming out of the pandemic, we needed something like that.
Wait a minute. So he didn't fly the F-15 or F-18 under
a bridge?
Oh, he did.
I meant just like the idea of.
But he didn't fly it under the bridge at Mach 5?
Of course he did.
Oh.
It's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise can do whatever he wants. If he thinks it, he's done it.
Just making sure.
But it's like everything like that's what we needed for coming out of the pandemic. That's what we needed. We needed a movie like Top Gun, and I think that's why it was so celebrated by critics and audiences alike.
But it made a lot of movie, and like people talk about it. It's gotten to the point where it's almost a generational movie. Like it's now put itself in the conversation of 20 years from now. People are going to be talking about like, oh, you remember Maverick that year? Like, oh yeah. No, but you know what? Who's going to get the award? It's going to be some fucking nomination. It's going
to be that
wasn't released until December 30th of that year because it
Yeah.
got in just under the
wire.
You know?
Yeah, I guess
So-
like Maverick this year was like the summer of '89 when Batman came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Fucking, it's Batman!" And we're like, "It's fucking Tom Cruise,
And then
Maverick."
you had like Prince making TV shows and like cereal boxes. Like it was just a whole thing. Yeah. I still need to see the movie. I will.
Yeah, you won't be disappointed in it in any stretch of the imagination.
I am
There's
disappointed
nothing
that
wrong with the movie.
I am
Didn't see it in
disappointed
theater?
that I didn't see it in the theaters. I will say that. But what can you do? Maybe it'll come out in like one of those cheap like $5 theaters that are around town. So maybe I'll go check that out.
Yeah, they still bring those back every once in a while.
Yeah, I hope so. There's one in Orleans that they bring out movies that are like 4 or 5 months past their time, I guess you'd say.
I could see like because they re-release everything back in theaters. I can see Maverick coming up, for a
Why
week or
not?
two.
Milk that cow, boy.
Especially with Oscars coming. Like, go see it again.
Just milk the cow. Yeah.
The cash cow, right?
The cash cow. Yeah. So I mean, do you watch the Oscars? Like, is this a thing that you tune
Like I said,
into?
it was like a religious thing. I was way into movies long, long ago. Now, if it's new, I won't watch it. If it's too long, I won't watch it.
So let me ask you, what was that light that went off in your mind that was like, you know what? Like, I'm not taking this as seriously as I once did.
Time.
Okay.
Just don't have it.
Thank God for that, because now movies are 3 hours long.
Yeah. What was the other day? I was gonna throw something on, and it was 2 hours and 40. Oh, I was gonna watch Almost Famous again. I was doing up a game that I thought that we would do with a fuller house here of hosts, and
Episode 100, maybe teaser.
maybe. So I was gonna watch Almost Famous again, and it was 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Not now. Mind you, I've seen it enough. I could just listen to it in my headphones.
Under certain circumstances, I would be okay with a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, but for the most part, I'm just like, you know what? You've got me for 120 minutes before I start to debate if I want to give you this time. But you got me for 2 hours. Like, let's make the most of that 2 hours,
Yeah, it's not bad if the 2 hours and 58 minutes doesn't feel like 2 hours and 58 minutes. Like, that was my biggest beef with the Batman, was it was long. It didn't feel like it, but then it had like 9 endings.
Yeah.
If you could have just cropped one of them out or ended it with one of the ones that preceded it, I think you would have been just tighter.
Oh, like when they were all in the arena and you're like, oh, this is like the crescendo, like this is the end of the movie, and you're like, oh fuck, like
but no,
into
there was more.
His apartment. Yeah, let's bring the crew. There was more. Yeah, like
for me, I thought like they could have ended it with Nash in Arkham looking out the window and Batman thwarted everything in credits. But no, that it happened. Then he had the fight sequence, and then there was the getting people out of the arena.
Madison,
then it was
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that too. Square Garden. You could not come up with a different name.
I know, honest to God.
Like the Gotham Bowl or Gotham Arena or something.
Like
Gotham Square Garden.
Like, give me a fraction of what you paid someone on set, and I'll come up with the best name. And you know what? I'll make sure that that's a realistic.
Like, it was so cheesy. I thought maybe it was a reference to Adam West's Batman. Just having some sort of Gotham in front of something. Oh, it's Gotham Central Bank. It's Gotham Observatory.
And then, pow.
Yeah. You needed just like a placard, right? Just so the yellow. This is emergency switch.
A bunch of go-go dancers are just going on the side.
Yeah, they all have the villain henchmen have long sleeve shirts with their name across the chest.
That's right. Yeah. Goon number 1.
Yeah.
Bob. That's another.
My name.
That's we should do a movie review for the first Batman. The Michael
Keaton's
Keaton
or,
Batman.
or okay,
No,
so
Mike Keaton's
Batman the movie with
No.
Adam West and Burt Ward.
No. Yeah.
Like
Holy.
that
Bat-
was like the Avengers, right? Because it was Joker, Riddler, Penguin, Catwoman all together.
I remember seeing that when I was a kid, thinking just that,
So the
like,
greatest thing ever.
God. And
How
I
is
don't
he gonna
care.
get out of this?
I don't care if Batman's fighting a shark with a laser attached to it. Like, it doesn't
Or
matter.
running on a pier with a bomb.
Like, I basically saw Mickey as the what was it, the Joker, Rocky's Mickey.
Yeah, he's the Penguin.
Or the
Romero
Penguin,
is
sorry,
Joker, yeah.
Penguin, yeah. But all of them in the one movie. I was like, oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
No. And he's just running around.
Gonna throw it over here. There's like ducks or something. They're gonna throw over here.
Today's Batman would be like, oh god.
His Batman would have put it in the bat and flew it into Gotham Harbor.
That's right.
And blown up.
So
I'd deep dive into Batman.
I'd be completely okay with that. We should do that leading up to, what we should do is we should, like, hey, just pulling back the curtains a little bit on future planning, but we have the Flash movie coming up. We should do the review of the Flash, but before that movie, we should do a review of 89. Just call it 89. I'd even be down with 92, Batman Returns. After that, I'm okay. I read somewhere today that for the one that Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze, what was it? Batman and Robin. He was paid $1 million a day. That was what his wage was. And so he was on set the equivalent of 25 days. He was paid $25 million. And I wish I would have saved it, but whoever was speaking about it was saying that they had gutted so much of the proceeds to the actors where they could make a movie. And I feel like, okay, fair enough. Like, that might be true to some extent.
Yeah.
But are you also making up for the fact that you made a shit movie?
Yeah, like, someone signed off on those contracts, so.
I'm going to put you on ice.
It did have some great puns.
That's how I should end it from now on. I'm going to put you on ice.
That or ice to see you.
Nice to see you. Yeah. Anyway, $25 million for the Schwarzenegger.
Good for him. Get it when you can get it.
I mean, Christ. I mean, he is talk about someone coming over to America and just making the absolute most of a life that you could ever make. The dream. Like, he's made the dream. He made millions of dollars. He was a international action star. He then turned around and was like, I'm going to be a governor of a state. Check that off. And probably
he was a Republican governor that actually got a lot of Democratic votes.
Was he a Republican?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So yeah, it was, and if it wasn't for him being born on the other side of the world, he probably would have run for the presidency for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, he's what? Is he 80 now?
He's got to be up there. He has to be up there. I'm going to say like mid-70s.
Good on him.
But he's still pumping out those like army tank. There's a mobile game. It's an army tank game. I don't know what it's called, but he is pumping out. He's promoting some mobile app game.
Now, when you're saying
army warfare,
when you're saying pumping out, is that a pun on his pumping up?
Pump you up.
Hans and Franz.
Hans and Franz.
Oh, can't talk SNL. We'll get soon.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Wrap it up for this week. I won't play the closing music because, again,
it's fine. We don't want to get sued. We got to
next time.
That's right. Yeah.
James Ward, next time, baby.
I still have to think of something to say when we sign off. So, like Excelsior, maybe.
Excelsior. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
End show.